Politics. This is one way in which government tries to overturn International Criminal Court's arrest warrant once it arrives on South African soil, since country is a signatory member of organization. Additionally, summit will host other national formations from Global South, including Bangladesh, Egypt and United Arab Emirates, with aim of expanding these emerging economies globally. According to President Cyril Ramaphosa's verbal responses to questions from the National Assembly in March, the summit is an integral part of building strong international trade relations and accelerating domestic infrastructure development. One of our priorities during our presidency is to establish a partnership between BRICS and Africa to unlock mutually beneficial opportunities for increased trade, investment and infrastructure development. However, City Press understands that the South African government is exploring the concept of a hybrid session where some leaders can attend physically in Johannesburg while others, like Putin, can attend virtually. According to a government official, the Ramaphosa administration is ministration that rescinded previous decision to leave the ICC and decided stay country. So they can no longer oppose their own decisions by letting Putin come. They do not want to take decisions that will harm the country's interests in the long run. South Africa does not want to be a pariah state. The question of whether Putin will be allowed to enter the country is complex internationally. Just 1 year after Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, the International Criminal Court has issued 2 arrest warrants for top officials. Read: Malema pledges protection to Vladimir Putin if Russian president visits SA. The ICC has jurisdiction under the Rome Statute, an agreement designed to hold political leaders accountable for crimes on the international stage. In October, South Africa tried to leave the ICC, but eventually withdrew its request after the government's High Court ruled it unconstitutional. According to Brooks Spector, associate editor of Daily Maverick and former US diplomat, risk of taking revenge on Russia is very low if South African government does not comply with ICC's decision and arrest Putin on arrival. First, is too far away, he said. Second, the amount of trade between Russia and South Africa is absolutely ridiculous compared to trade with Western Europe and the United States. Below is a look at the stance of many South African political parties regarding Putin's proposed visit. ANC: The 1848 publication called for abolition, class distinctions and the creation of a society where residents collectively shared benefits labor. As a result, the Soviet Union proposed South African sanctions at the United Nations annually from 1963 to 1989. The Soviet Union's support for African National Congress in its work against white-dominated regime leads to party's attitude towards country today. To Spector, the South African government insists that they have a long-term and positive relationship because of the Soviet Union's support for freedom movements in the 60s, 70s and 80s. This becomes a complex question, because relationship passed to successor state, Russia, but at same time, not to any of other successor states that once formed Soviet Union. In world of northern global powers, a historical dichotomy is emerging, whether it is allied and pivotal powers in First World War or G7 versus BRICS today. The ANC abstained from voting in UN General Assembly on condemning the Russian invasion of Ukraine in March 2022 and has since made little statement about conflict. SACP According to an April statement, SA Communist Party support for the South African BRICS summit focuses on opposing a unipolar world order dominated by US and Europe. The party added that arrest warrant was issued on the eve of Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit to Russia in March, revealing political motivation and historical inconsistency. Unfortunately, the imperialist powers continue to manipulate this multilateral institution and use it for judicial imperialism, the SACP wrote. Despite many appeals, ample evidence, the ICC has consistently refused to blame the likes of Netanyahu, Bush, Clinton, Blair and Obama for destroying countries, killing thousands. Read: Kremlin says Putin not responsible for escalating global food crisis after meeting with AU leaders. EFF Economic Freedom Fighters have made it clear that they support Putin's visit and have questioned the West's double standards. EFF leader Julius Malema said at a media briefing last month, "We are telling the ICC that Putin is welcome here. No one will arrest Putin. He'll give his speech and end all his talks, and we'll take him back to the airport. We will not be told about these hypocrites of the ICC who know the real human rights violators and heirs of this world." The Democratic Alliance's position on Putin's possible visit took into account country's reputation, and the party said that South Africa would be considered a higher-risk trading partner globally if government failed to arrest Putin. In 2015, South Africa did not arrest former Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir after the ICC charged him with extermination and 2 war crimes, among other allegations. The government granted al-Bashir immunity as head of state, a move the DA said showed that the ANC did not prioritize human rights. Darren Bergman, DA Shadow Minister for International Affairs and Cooperation, wrote in March, "If President Ramaphosa insists on putting his friendship with a wanted war criminal before good of his people, we urge him to ensure that the meeting takes place on neutral ground and that peace and immediate withdrawal of Russia from Ukraine are given priority." China, the country's largest trading partner, did not condemn Russia and publicly refuted Western sanctions against the Kremlin. When asked whether sanctions would be imposed by trade allies if South Africa did not satisfy the ICC, Spector said the answer was unclear. Does the USA or any other Western country want to stir things up about this? To do more than publicly criticize this? That's really hard to say, he replied.